Business, a person's occupation, profession, or trade. Connection, a relationship in which a person or idea is linked or associated with something else. Welcome to Business Connection. Each week, our program will offer inspiration to navigate the business world. Information you can use to succeed in any field. And we will help you focus on your goals. Join us now for Business Connection with your host, B.C. Clark.
Well, hello, and welcome to the Business Connection. I'm your host, B.C. Clark. As you know, I interview business owners across the state. Today, my guest is Xavier Jackson, owner of the local Art Plug. Welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm B.C. Clark. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself and the local Art Plug. Tell us what it's about.
Definitely. So, my name is Xavier Jackson. I'm from Omaha, Nebraska, South Omaha to be specific, and I'm the founder of the local Art Plug. And at the local Art Plug, we connect local artists with local art lovers, businesses, nonprofits, and the community. What does all that mean? So what we're really trying to do is make art more accessible. We want to make Omaha a better place for creators to be able to thrive in their passions and find opportunities.
And that's going really well.
Yes, yep.
I was just going to tell you that I think you have some new things happening, like you've moved, maybe, right?
Yep, so we've added a second location that we're really excited about, and this will give creatives more chance to kind of really own their craft and everything that they produce. So this second space is located at the Fairdale Village Market off of 24th Street.
Oh,
kind of close to 24th and Lake near the Union. Yep, definitely.
Oh, that's
We're pretty
awesome.
excited to be there.
Yeah,
Yep,
that's
yep.
well. There's a lot of traffic in that area as well.
There's a lot of traffic too. Yeah.
And so that's a really good, especially. And you're a new entrepreneur. You've been in
Yes.
business for a while. But how long has it been? How you been in business?
I started the entrepreneur journey in about 2017. So this will be 2016, 17. I'll say this is going on year 8. But we've got incorporated in 2020 is when I really
took off. And I think that's important to say because I think a lot of individuals think that, oh, when I start my business, it's gonna go. It doesn't happen always that way. And that's why I always say to myself that an entrepreneur is still a startup, at least after the 6th or 7th year, because then by that time you're settling down. If you got past 5 years, then you're already on your way. You've figured out some things and you're still, working to sustainability.
Yes.
And so I think what happens a lot of times is people get anxious and, I started my business like last year and I'm not doing anything. Well, okay. Yeah. Is it still going?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And so I think that that's good that you say that, because it takes that time.
It does take that time.
To really start to build. You can't, and if you haven't done some things prior to, talk about some of the things that you did before you went on that entrepreneur journey, because it's those things that really matter, whether you get past 5 years or not.
Definitely.
Would you agree?
Yes, I would agree. And I call them tours of duty.
Yeah, tours of duty.
I
love that. Yeah, that's a good one.
But essentially just getting those skills that I needed to be the best entrepreneur that I could. So I went to college. I got my degree in broadcast production and advertising, but I couldn't find a job in my major. So I started working construction because that's where I could find a job and it was paying pretty well.
Absolutely.
But it wasn't the best thing in the world. But I had the idea for the business the whole time in the back of my head, and I applied to a couple of accelerators that helped me work through that business idea. But working at the construction company, I learned just grit and determination. And from that, I learned that I also needed more free time to be able to devote towards the business. Although the business wasn't making money, there was that traction. And you're not always going to make money in the beginning.
That's right.
But as long as you can see that traction, it's growing and you're actually helping people. And you got to do your research, of course.
That's what
there
I'm
has to be
waiting
an
for you to say.
opportunity there. And once you validate that opportunity, you just have to keep going at it. Because you may be able to see it and other people can't see it. And they're going to tell you, oh, don't stop or stop. This is a bad idea, don't go after this business. But if you have the numbers to kind of back up what you're doing, then you know that there's an opportunity there. It might just take a while for that to happen. It took me a while.
Right.
But it ended up working out in the end. And I don't tell many people this, but I said at the age of 29, if the business wasn't growing or going in the right direction, that I'd just stop everything. I was 29 last year. And that's when everything took off. Last year, the year I was going to quit. That was my make or break year. It just
talk about some of the things that happened last year for you in your business.
Definitely.
And they were significant.
Yeah. And this is another first that I'll say too. Leading up to last year, I had lost my job, so I was unemployment. And this was 2022, getting unemployment checks, living with family. So just a low time in my life. And then that following year, the business started taking off, won a pitch competition,
Yep.
which gave $15,000 to fund the business.
Absolutely.
And then basically just turned
That's
my
right.
whole life around. Yeah, so I just stuck with it. And I think, like they say, it's the darkest before the sun comes out.
It is.
So just really having that faith and that perseverance that something's on that other side and keep working towards it.
And you
Yeah.
have to keep going. And I think that I think the one thing that I noticed today about entrepreneurs, when I was an entrepreneur, and this was, I'm not going to even say the year, but anyway, my business has been going since 2003. Okay, and so back then there weren't as many resources as there are now, and primarily for women and minority women, there wasn't. I mean, everything was very hard, trying to get loans and all this kind of stuff. So you kind of like took off on your own, and you had to have grit. You had to have that courage to believe in what you were doing, that one day it was going to be right, and you had to keep moving. You had to do a lot of research and developing. You kept developing yourself or your skills that you were going to be able to serve other people with. And I think that for me, that road was bumpy, lumpy, but we kept going. I remember getting started. I had two other partners. And one was a male and the other one was a female. And so we were talking about how hard it was, yet he could go to a lot of groups and he would get tons of information. We didn't have those groups to go to. So that's why I started one of the organizations that I have is the Metro Omaha Women's Business Center. And that started in 2008, but it was a lot of research done before that. And I think people fail to do this. They fail to do research to find out about that industry. They also fail to look at what the trend says about it. Because if you're going to start a business and in 2 years that business, they're saying it's going to be declining, that is not something you want to start. And so I think they miss a step when they don't do that research and really try to find out if this is going to be something significant that they can make money at going forward.
Definitely.
Definitely.
'Cause I
But
think,
you gotta have grit too. You have to. So I think the construction company gave you that.
Yeah, I've
because-
had a lot of odd jobs, but yeah, a lot of grit, a lot of determination.
Yeah.
Being able to get things done.
I think I think it's good though to have, because things that you learn on those roads, you would have never gotten had you not been on that road.
Exactly.
And they were significant for where you are today.
Yes, yeah, definitely. So I
So-
appreciate them for that. Even I delivered packages for Amazon as well.
Yeah.
They taught me about punctuality and being on time.
That's right.
Yep. So you got 5 minutes to deliver that package at each stop, so you got to
need to
make sure
get
you get
there.
that in and out. No,
Yeah.
it was my last odd job. I've had a few. Oh, so the news station, they helped me get out of my shell and like really talk to people, communicate, and then finally selling cars. That helped me
that's
be comfortable talking about numbers and making
Yes.
sales and closing deals.
That is amazing. And I think people don't realize we all have a past.
Yes.
To get to where we are. They just see us where we are. They don't realize what we've gone through to get here. Because people will say, oh, I can't wait to be there. I'm thinking, no, let's do it a different way. Don't go through everything I went through. Let me
Yes.
help you not go through the bumps and the lumps. Okay, and a lot of times people don't get it.
No, they don't.
So you just
Yeah.
have to kind of roll with it. But I just want to tell you how proud I am of the things that you're doing in the community and how you're reaching out to younger individuals that are, looking up to you. Because I see a lot of people saying, oh, yeah, oh, Xavier. I mean, they're following you. They are really following you. And that's a good thing. So always remember to reach back, and I
Definitely.
see that you're doing that. So it's really good to be able to share those opportunities and things that you see, but also share with them the road as well.
Yeah.
So they can understand that, hey, the road may be long, but if you stick with it, you will see sunlight. And that's something I always tell people. Don't say, I think I can. Say, I believe I can.
Yes.
Because if you think you can, you might. But if you believe you can, you will.
Yes.
And so that's really important to have that hope within you. And always setting goals forward.
Yes. I agree.
Because if you don't have any goals forward, you're going to stop. I always tell people that, and they're like, what do you mean? If you do a strategic plan, it's only 3 years, and you don't plan on the second year for the fourth and fifth year,
Yeah.
you stop
Yeah,
at the
for
third
3
year.
years, yeah.
And so, so it's just things like that people don't think about, When they look at success, they just see the success.
They just see the
They don't know
success.
what people went through to get there.
Yes, exactly.
And so I think sometimes we have to share those dark times with people so they understand that there's always something dark before you get over to the other side.
Definitely.
And so what are some of the things that you learned on this path that you can turn around and tell people when you see them struggling and about to give up?
Definitely. One thing that I've been saying pretty often is that, life's a journey and that you're going to be alive for a long time.
Yeah.
So don't expect to achieve your dreams tomorrow. And I try to look at my life as like a movie or like a video game,
Yeah.
honestly. So you've got your main missions, you got your main quest, but you've also got your side missions, you got your side quests, and you got to make sure you do all of those because
Yeah.
it adds up to the story at the end.
It
So the
does.
side quest could be maybe you do hang out with your friends, you hang out with your family, you go to that networking meeting, and then that all ties back to that main goal that you're trying to achieve in your life.
Exactly.
And you can't lose focus of that main goal or just stay focused on that main goal. Otherwise, you're going to miss out on all these other aspects of life.
That's right.
So there's so many things to it. Just staying positive. And then I also tell them that, your friends and family might not be your biggest supporter in the beginning,
sure.
but you can't rely on them to support you solely because they didn't tell you to go be an entrepreneur. They didn't tell you to go be an artist. They didn't tell you to go live that lifestyle.
That's so
They're
good.
going to love you and support you no
Right.
matter what. But they're also not going to understand it or see the vision that you see. So they might tell you to go be a teacher,
Yeah.
or, go be a doctor or something that makes sense, something that
They
they
tell you to
know
be a
that
teacher,
makes
run.
money.
No.
Yeah.
Because that is just not happening. But
No,
I mean, and teaching is for those people who have the
Yes.
passion and the heart for it.
It's not for everybody.
But they need, we don't pay them enough.
No, and that's the thing. That's what
they
my
lose
family would
really
tell me. Go
good
be a
teachers.
teacher.
Yeah.
And it's like,
They
I
lose really
understand.
good teachers.
Coming from a long line of educators, and that was a great job, back in the day growing up. It was a stable
Right.
job, but I keep trying to tell them too, teachers are always on strike. They're always on strike. That's all I see them do. They're always on strike for more money. So
That's true.
they
I
need to
mean,
be paid more.
We had a
but,
complete walkout
yeah.
of a whole group of teachers at one place.
Yes.
So that tells you that something is declining in that field. I'm
Sadly,
looking forward to that. Teaching will probably be something with AI going forward, and I
think so.
I
or
think
even
people are-
alternative schools.
and because it's just they just don't give them their worth. They're with our kids all day long, and we don't pay them enough.
Yeah, and it's just the classrooms are getting bigger and the workload's getting more.
The
and it's just
kids are
one
getting,
person.
spoiled, more spoiled.
That's true, yeah.
So they have their own little things. But one thing I wanted to talk with you about is, this is Women's History Month. And I don't know about you, but in every time there's a particular month that celebrates a particular history, or it's African history or whatever, I always find someone in that arena that I can look up to. And in this month, have you ever heard of Bridget Biddy Mason?
I don't think so.
Bridget Biddy Mason, and so before I tell you her story, when you look at women's history, who is your shero? And when you look at history, who kind of like gave you some insight? And I want two. I want one that's personal to you and one that you can look at history and saw her doing some things as a woman and made some changes that you would say, you know what, this was a good move, and I could kind of see and relate to that.
Definitely. Well, I have two in my life now that I look up to. One is my current boss. Yeah, definitely my mom. Yeah, of course. But,
yeah, she's listening. So
yeah, she's listening. So yeah, mom, grandma.
Yeah.
That goes without
That's
saying.
right.
But definitely my boss, Teresa Hunter. It's just inspiring to see the amount
She's
of
a
work
great
and
lady.
passion that she puts into her job and just the things that she does, and
Yeah.
that really translates to the rest of the team. And
Yeah.
I learned a lot from her. And then another one I've met recently is Candace Price, and she owns Home Team Auto Sales, Home Team Auto. But just seeing her be a business leader and on the boards that she's on, and then going to the meetings and just hearing her speak, just very smart lady, and just always kind of a pleasure to be around and learn from.
Yeah.
And then in history, I'd say the first one that came to my mind is Wilma Rudolph. And not many people I feel like know who Wilma Rudolph
Yeah.
is, but one of the reasons that she sticks out to me and Oprah Winfrey as well, is because my grandparents actually went to high school with Wilma Rudolph.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, wow, that's crazy to know that y'all went to high school with someone who changed the history, basically.
That's right, yeah.
Grew up with polio, during
Yes.
the time of segregation, and then
Oh,
went and
my
ran in the
gosh.
Olympics, won all those gold medals for women's track and field, and
Yes.
brought it back to America. And then they buried her in Clarksville, Tennessee. That's where my dad's side of the family's from.
Yeah.
And then my grandpa later on went to TSU, Tennessee State University, with Oprah Winfrey in college.
Weird?
Isn't that crazy? Yep.
She's like, you
Yeah.
see that person that's far off, and then you see your parents or grandparents went to school with them too. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, mine is Bridget Biddy Mason, and in the 1800s she was a slave, and so it was like in that group it was like 50 other slaves that was with her that had children and things, and they were with a Mormon slave master, and so anyway they moved around to different places. It was mostly in the South, and so one time he decided he was going to move to California. So he moved to California and took all, of course, the slaves with him. And I think they were there for a year or so, but slaves were free in California. And so at that time. And so he was getting ready to leave. And so she had made friends with a lot of other white people that were prominent in California. And they really liked her. And so she said, see, she couldn't go to court to fight for her freedom, you know, but these people could. So they went to court and they fought, and so she became free, and all the people that was with her became free. So the slave master had to leave without them. She went on to become one of the first black women to own a business.
Oh, wow.
She created a school, and she became a philanthropist. This was back in the 1800s.
Wow.
In 1861, I was reading about, no, not in 1861, but I read about what was happening in 1861, and she became my hero. I read about her probably about 30 years ago, and I thought if she did all of this when she was oppressed, and we have opportunity to do so many things, why would I stop doing anything that I'm trying to do?
Exactly.
And so she has been like, they always say, if you could have lunch with someone, who would it be, whether they were living or dead? I would always say her.
Yeah.
Because I just need to understand.
How do you do it?
And I read her background, but when I think about business and things that you want to do, there is nothing that should stop you, because we have so much opportunity today that she never had.
Yes.
So
much easier now to
my
start a
God.
business than.
Yes, and so for her to fight through all of that and become a legend in her own time, it just blows me away. But I always recognize her for Women's History Month. And I think that more people need to know her story.
I think so.
Because I think that most of them don't know. When I say, do you know Bridget Biddy Mason? They were like, no, I've never heard of her. Where does she live? I said, oh, well, she's not living right now. But anyway, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So sometimes you can find someone in history that you can pattern and get so much knowledge from what they did at their time that it sets you in a motion to keep moving forward in your time.
Yes.
And be able to do some of those things that you think you could not do. And so I think that's what keeps me going, is knowing all the things that she did, and then being able to turn that stuff I've learned back over to people, train other people, let them know about the things, reaching back and bringing them up with the knowledge and things like that. And I see that you're doing a lot of that yourself. And so it's really important that we don't forget where we came from, but we always remember where we're going.
Always.
And and I think sometimes people forget when they get into a struggle, they will stop. And then they say, I just can't do this, it's not going to work. Sometimes those things are there to see what kind of that we have, to see if we have the motion or the power to move forward. And if we get stopped there, we get stuck and we don't move. So no matter how hard it is, you got to put that one foot out to make that step, because when you do that, everything changes. By the time you bring the other step up, everything is moving in front of you. And so it looks a lot brighter. I always say that because to me, I think it means that you don't stop.
No, I agree. And I don't mean to sound super religious. I don't know how
No,
religious anyone else
really,
is.
I'm not religious,
Yeah.
but I'm a believer.
Yeah,
And I know I can't do
same,
nothing without him. Okay,
same,
so that's
yeah.
all right. We're on the same page.
But essentially, when that happens, I'm like, oh, that's just the devil trying to stop me. It's like, there's some type of presence just trying to stop me. There's some hurdle. It's
It's
a
the
test.
enemy.
And then I'm on, it sounds a little crazy, but I'm like, that's going to make a good part of the movie and the documentary that they make about me.
right.
So, yep, that's just
That's something.
part of the journey.
Yeah, and I think you have to have, some people say, oh, my higher power. I like to call it out who it is. I don't want to say your higher power.
Whatever they
because I
call
don't know
it,
who that
yeah.
is. But I know who mine is, so I ain't trying to worry. But I think that there's always something that pulls you, that you pull your strength from. Sometimes it may be your family and watching what they do. Other times it could be people like in history or people that you have patterned yourself after, someone that you see, a mentor
Yes.
or something like that. And I think that it's important to have those.
Yes.
As a entrepreneur, no matter what you're doing, I think you sometimes need to talk to people if you're feeling a certain type of way,
Yes.
and make sure that it's someone that will understand where you're coming from. So it has to be someone that has experience. And I think the other thing is that don't allow someone to tell you who you are. Because when you came in the world, you have purpose already in you. You just have to find that purpose and be able to use that purpose and make what it is that he's called you to do.
Yes.
That's always what I'm thinking. And so I think a lot of times people get confused. And when you don't know who you are, you make all the wrong mistakes. It takes time. I have to tell you, I think I was probably 40 before I really, really, really realized who I was and the abilities and skills that I had already learned within me. And that's when my father owned a gas station when I was younger.
Oh, wow.
And in high school, I had to do the books. I hated math. But that taught me a lot of things, because a lot of times I couldn't go to bed until I had finished the books. Now, he had never taught me anything about the books because he probably didn't know himself. He just wrote down what came in, and he wrote down what went out. And so I had to come up with whatever we were going to come up with a net later, sooner or later. I did that for like 4 years in high school. I hated every minute of it. And so I decided I was not going to be an accountant, or anything like that. But what I realized today, those were seeds that were planted so that when I got to where I am today, those numbers become very, very important. And so I think that's why it was the task that I had to do back then. And I did not like my father at that time, but, and he's gone on now. But, I think about a lot of things that he would make us do. And it was all because he was planting seeds so that we could not give up, that we could keep going. And so I'm thankful for that. Sometimes we have to remember where we came from.
Yes.
But we can't stay there.
Definitely.
Yeah,
and I've got 2 quotes to go along with that. And then I always try to travel by my childhood home and drive by it once a month or once every couple of weeks just to see what it looks like. Yeah. I drove by it on the way here, actually, because I used to live by, it was 42nd and D behind McDonald's, and there's like Taco Bell and all these other things in the apartments. The first quote is, these are both rap quotes. The first quote is from Quavo, and it's, "They don't know what I know. They ain't seen what I seen. So what do they talk about?"
I love that.
And I think about that all the time.
Yes.
It's like, I know what I've seen, and I know what the proof and the data is, but y'all don't know that. And it's like, I can't explain everything that I know to y'all, but you're trying to tell me that it's not going to work from your perception. So it's just like, but I know it's going to work.
Yes.
So always keep in mind that you know what you know.
He's already seen what you know,
Yes.
right? You've seen what he's shown you.
Yes,
so
exactly.
you already know it's going to work.
Exactly.
All right? Yeah. I love that.
And then the second one is from Jay-Z, and he quoted it from Hamlet. I don't know how accurate the quote is, but it's, "Though we know who we are, we know not what we may be. So maybe I'm the one, or maybe I'm crazy."
Yeah.
And there's only one way to find out. Right?
That's right.
So,
keep rolling.
Keep rolling.
Let's roll it.
Gotta keep
That's
moving
it.
forward. But
I love that.
Yeah. So those 2 go through my head pretty often throughout the day when
and it is.
things
People
happen.
are always trying to,
we know who we are. We don't know who we're gonna be in the future, though. So.
No, we don't. And we have different seasons in our lives, right?
Yes.
And they change. And you have to change with those seasons, because if you don't, then you're out of sync, and nothing is working for you. Have you ever been in that position?
Yeah.
I have. Yeah. And this doesn't feel good.
Oh no.
And then you have to stop. Oh my God.
Internal conflict, and you feel sad.
Yes. I mean, and I don't think people realize that. But I remember one time, I was at Conagra for like almost 28 years, just a couple months shy, and I retired. But I think about sometimes when I didn't know, because I was always alert, and always ahead of the game. Because I was just a habitual, I studied manuals. I was in IT.
Yeah.
So, I stayed above everything. And I remember one time when I saw things shifting, but I wasn't sure, and I was extremely comfortable where I was. And that comfortability didn't afford me to stay there, okay? But I loved where it was, because I love putting out fires. I loved it, and that was what was happening. You have to be careful sometimes when you really love something that you're doing, because when the time is, when that season starts to move over, you have to be careful and make sure you say, okay, things are changing. so I need to stay there.
Yes.
So I stay under the anointing, right? And I saw that move and I was like, oh my goodness, I see what's happening now. And I had to make a shift. And so it's good to know yourself
Yes.
so that you know when you need to pivot. Because when those seasons change and you're out of sync, it's not a good feeling.
It's not a good feeling.
And so you have to be able to be on point and know yourself well
Yes.
enough to know when you see things changing and don't ignore them. You know, I
Yes.
saw the season change at my last place and something said, it's time to move. I need you to move now.
Yes.
And you know, and people will say, oh, I don't get those calls. I do.
I do too.
And
Yeah. I'm glad you
and I
said that
move.
too. It makes me feel
Yep.
less crazy. I'm not the
And
only
people
one.
say, well, I can't believe it. You know, things are great here. You're doing all this good stuff. I'm like, I got to do it somewhere else now.
Yeah.
And so that's what it was. But I thank you so much for coming in today and sharing. I don't often get to really just talk about two different things. I'm usually talking about letting that person talk about their business. And what do you want to say to entrepreneurs right now?
Definitely. I want to say that there's a lot of myths maybe around entrepreneurship. Don't believe everything that you see on social media, especially like financial advice. I saw someone say something about, oh, you know, if you have $1 million in the bank, they only gonna give you 10% back. So that's not how it works. Banks are insured up to $250,000 through FDIC. So
Yeah.
that right there, every time I see something silly, I just log off. So
Log off. I'll do it.
Just be mindful of what you're taking in and what you're choosing to learn, and make sure that you are reaching out to professionals. And there's a bunch of free services in town. And if you don't know, ask.
Ask.
It never hurts to ask.
It never hurts to ask. And I'll just piggyback on that and just say, you know, the one thing is to know who you are and what you can do. Always continue to develop your skills, because there's always someone else that's out there doing the same thing. And if you're trying to get an account or a contract, you know, you want to be doing your best and have the best references that you can. And the only way to have the best references is to do the best work that you can. And remember that if you think you can, you might. But if you believe you can, you will. And I want you to meet Xavier Jackson. Xavier, tell them who your website is. We have just a couple seconds.
Yeah, definitely. So you can find us at localartplug.com or on social media at Instagram, local_artplug. And then that's the same for LinkedIn. And then we are on Facebook, Local Art Plug, all one word. We have 2 locations, one at the Flatiron Building. Feel free to stop by anytime or message us on social media, give you a tour. And then the other one is at the Fairdale Village Market.
Awesome. Well, listen, this has been great. I hope you learned a lot. And if you have questions, I'm BC Clark. I'm with The Business Connection. My website is www.thebusinessconnectione.com. Thank you for being with us today, and we hope to see you again soon.